Hey there friends, today I'm going to give everybody a lesson on how to brag about things. If you're bragging about something, you should at least have better results to confirm that what you're bragging about is worth bragging about, right? First guys, go check out my friends Attorneys on Retainer at attorneysonretainer.us. Don't trust an insurance company with your self-defense, guys. These guys are the ultimate self-defense program offered by a law firm. This is literally on the front page of their website. These guys are going to cover you whether you are charged or convicted of a criminal act, take a plea deal, use an illegal weapon or firearm, hope you're not. They provide coverage in all 50 states, have a 24/7 emergency line. 100% of your criminal and civil defense fees are covered through trial. If you go there now and sign up, you will get $50 off your one-time sign-up fee. That's $50 off the $100 sign-up fee. Go there now, use my code FTATF. Again, that's attorneysonretainer.us. Attorney General Bonta in California this month put out the June 2024 Office of Gun Violence Prevention, basically a braggadocious report that's supposed to show that things are doing really well in regards to, quote, gun safety or gun violence prevention in the state of California. Now, I want to point out a little point of irony that everybody's fighting for the month of June right now, right? It's just the gun violence prevention people. Let's paint everything orange in June. It's like their big month. They're trying to wrestle that away from the LGBTQ, ABCDEFG plus, minus, and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to wrestle it from them. Meanwhile, June 19th is going to roll around and the black community is going to try to wrestle it from the gun violence community and the LGBT community. Everybody's fighting over the month of June. Let's see how that one turns out. In the letter from Attorney General Bonta, he goes on to brag and brag and brag, not about reducing gun violence, but he actually spends his entire time talking about gun violence restraining orders that were implemented. For instance, he goes on to state statewide the total number of protection orders issued with provisions limiting a respondent's access to firearms and other weapons increased by 20% between 2020 and 2023. He says the number of final protection orders issued with firearm provisions by California civil courts increased by 25% from 2020 to 2023. He goes on to state that the number of gun violence restraining orders issued per year in California more than doubled from 2020 to 2023, increasing by 118%. He also goes on to say that from 2016 to 2023, by the way, 2016 is whenever the risk protection orders or the red flag gun laws were first implemented in California. So he goes on to say between 16 and 23, the first 8 years after the gun violence restraining order law took effect, 44% of all gun violence restraining orders issued in California were issued in 2 of California's 58 counties. I'm not sure how that is a stat that you would want to brag about. To me, that shows that you've got your most liberal areas like San Diego and Santa Clara counties that are using these unconstitutional red flag gun laws. That's telling me that DAs throughout the better part of the state, more likely the red part of the state, don't see the value in implementing or using something that's unconstitutional like this. Then they have another cute little slide here with a really cool looking pie chart there, no offensive colors, that still shows and still brags about just the number of gun violence restraining type orders that they put out. Again, no mention of a reduction in gun deaths. Move on to their next little fancy graph, and again, we're bragging about a massive increase, again 2016 being the first year that gun violence restraining orders were first implemented, and then all the way over to 2023, the last measurable year that they took these statistics as far as the gun violence restraining orders being issued. Look at that massive increase in them. Again, there's not a graph in this entire report by Bonta that shows not even a mention of gun-related deaths or bragging about a reduction in them. So what I did is I went to the CDC's own website, National Center for Health Statistics, under firearm mortality rate, If you notice, I chose the year 2016 because that's the first year that these were implemented, these restraining orders in the state of California. And of course, I chose California. You'll notice in the 2016 data table that they have 7.9. That's the rate of deaths for violence. This is firearm-related violence. This is not total deaths. This is specifically firearm-related. And you'll notice the raw number was 3,184 over to the right. Okay, so let's take the last measurable year that I have was 2022. They did not have 2023 in here, so out of fairness, if we're going to compare the same numbers, let's compare them from the same time frame. So we're going to top out at 2022, and again, looking at California, it's 3,484. So we took their numbers of the gun violence restraining orders, which increased by crazy numbers. If the gun violence restraining orders, red flag gun laws, actually worked, shouldn't we see really close to the same amount of percentage increase in those restraining orders and the same percentage reduction in gun-related deaths? Shouldn't we, right? I mean, at least close, or at least we should see a trend, right? I broke these numbers down and put them side by side and would compare them. I know that can't be an apples for apples because not all dangerous people are having restraining orders called in on them, but a huge number of them are. Let's look at my little slide here. Has California's red flag laws reduced gun-related deaths? And just below that, to add some clarity to the numbers and why I chose them, I used 2016 to 2022 data because 2016 is when gun violence restraining orders were implemented in California, and 2022 is the latest year available from the CDC on firearm-related deaths in California. So you'll notice in 2016, gun violence restraining orders issued, there were 85. Look down at the bottom, firearm-related deaths in California. That's pulling off that slide that I just showed you, 3,184. Move on to 2022, 6 years later. Gun violence restraining orders issued, 1,907. Look to the right of that number. That's 1,822 more than were issued in 2016. That is a 2,143% increase in the issuance of gun violence restraining orders in the state of California in a 6-year period of time. A 2,143% increase. Let's move down to the number of firearm-related deaths in California, and we have an increase in firearm-related deaths, not a decrease, an increase. Remember, these should be going the opposite direction if these restraining orders actually worked. 3,484 deaths. That's 300 more than they had in 2016. So in a 6-year period of time, they had a 9% increase in firearm-related deaths. So not only did the numbers not go down by the same weighted measurement or percentage as the frequency of increase gun violence restraining orders were issued, they actually still went up. So no reduction in firearm-related deaths, even though we have a 2,143% increase in red flags issued. Now, I'm not trying to be naive here, and I'm not trying to be stupid, or I'm not trying to be misleading like most of the media, the gun control people, and let's just face it, a lot of the wackos on the far left. I understand that you can't measure negatives. People on the left are always talking about how many lives were saved by the implementation of certain things, including red flag gun laws. Constantly we are hearing that, oh, as a result of the Safer Bipartisan Communities Act, or whatever the gun control thing was that they passed, that we've saved X amount of lives. You can't measure that. You can't measure that. There's not a way, you cannot tell me that your red flag gun law saved even one life, because you can't measure that negative. You don't know that a person was about to murder somebody and then you implemented this. You don't know that. Unless they admit to you that had you not taken my guns from me, I would have killed a bunch of people. You don't have a way to measure that. And I would wager to guess that nobody has ever told you I would have killed a bunch of people if you wouldn't have taken my guns from me. So it's not possible for you to say that you could have saved more lives or less lives as a result of these gun violence restraining orders, right? But if you are going to brag about how many of these restraining orders you have implemented and issued by taking away the firearms rights, the Second Amendment rights of that many people, there were 2,143% more people whose rights were infringed upon in 2022 versus 2016. So you infringed on over 2,000% more people out there than what you did 6 years ago. Yet you cite zero numbers as far as positives and how it had any effect. You talk about what you did, but you don't talk about the result of what you did. What you did is implementing the red flag gun laws. What's the effect? What's the result? You don't cite anything. You have no claim. You have no final score. If you talk about a quarterback throwing for, I don't know, 1,000 yards in a game, 7 touchdowns, did they win? I kind of want to know the outcome. You don't talk about what the results are. You don't talk about the outcome. You just talk about the thing you did. Well, whoop-de-doo. That doesn't mean it was the right thing. People do the wrong thing all the time. And it doesn't give us the results that we're looking for. This was the wrong thing. All you're doing is bragging about the people you've infringed upon. You're not bragging about the result, which is which should be a positive result, right? If it's the right thing to do, we should be bragging about how many lives we've saved. You can't even talk about that because you're not even sure it's done that. And again, we've seen an increase in the gun-related deaths in the state of California. So clearly something ain't working over there. You're priding yourself on all these wonderful things you're doing to infringe upon gun rights, yet you still have an increase in your deaths. So you're bragging about the wrong things over there. I believe your priorities are a little bit twisted. The reason why I do things like this is because people need to be thinking. When certain people throw numbers out at you, you should not be looking at those and gobbling those up and going, wow, that sounds really impressive. Because it's not impressive to me that you have implemented and issued 1,907 restraining orders, yet we have zero evidence of any positive impact that has made. So you have no proof that anything you've done has worked. You've just shown what you're doing.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's so horrible.